Hello, viewers, and welcome back to episode 2 of this new Silver Screen Movie Podcast. I am your regular host, Michael Wilson, here to talk about movies. I hope you enjoyed our first episode. This week, we are talking about something very dear to my heart, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we will be reviewing the latest movie released in theaters, and that's Eternals. But I am not alone. I could never do this alone, and I have a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, hello, my name is Toby. It's lovely to be here, and yeah, I watch a lot of Marvel stuff and just very excited about it and love to talk about it with other people.
Absolutely, me too, yeah. So we've both seen Eternals. We were just talking before the recording. We both saw it roughly, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So it's still relatively fresh in our minds, but we both saw it at the cinema. At least I think you did, Toby. Yeah?
Yes. I watched it one day after it came out, I think, or 2 days. Not very long after it came out.
Yeah, I'm always there first thing for the Marvel movies at the very least. So, yeah, awesome.
Well, usually I'm not, but this time it just happened to work.
Oh, fair enough. That's okay. We will get into a little bit at the end because I want to go through the film first. And at the end, I've got some audience interaction stuff. So just some things that I asked on Twitter about what other people's opinions of the film are. And just for a little bit of interest, and I know you saw this because you replied, just how would you rate sort of phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far? So I have a few people's kind of ratings of that I thought would be interesting to touch on at the end as well, and where Eternals ranks in that. But without further ado, we'll get started with the film. And yeah, as I said, these notes will be kind of chronological as best I can. But if we dot about characters and ideas and stuff, we'll go with the flow as well. So just bear with us. We're just learning as we go. But I wanted to start by saying that the film itself begins thousands of years BC in the past.
5,000 BC.
Indeed. Wow, someone's done his homework.
Mesopotamia, 5,000 BCs.
Awesome. Yeah, the thing that I wanted to mention that about is that it never feels to me like there's that much that it was set that long ago. These flashbacks and stuff, they seem a little bit small, I guess, in comparison. And I was expecting, since this is a film, to feel the sense of wow, this is a grand, world completely removed from our own. But it was very much, it could have been filmed on a set somewhere. And that's true, I think, of most of the flashbacks, not necessarily all. I think the Babylon flashback was pretty impressive.
Yes.
But I was wondering if you had any similar thoughts about the flashbacks, or if you think I'm completely crazy and you just thought they were impressive potentially, because I know some people did. But
well, I disagree with that. I think they looked really good. Every flashback looked really good to me, but I think they should have played a bigger role in the movie because going in, I thought, okay, we're getting this big Eternals that just they were here on Earth for so many years, and we're just going through their journey until now. That's what I thought we were going into, and it isn't that.
Yeah, exactly.
And the flashbacks only really serve to build out the characters, which most movies have flashbacks for that purpose, and most of them spend just 10 years, 15 years in the past for that. Here, because we have the Eternals being such long-living beings, we have them just set more in the past, which is okay, it's fine, but I didn't feel like the flashbacks were used uniquely for this grand scheme as they should have been.
I think one of them does, and that's the scene. I may as well bring it up now. The scene that I really liked, which was when Phastos sees that kind of humanity has developed with his help to sort of the level of technology that they've developed the atomic bomb, and he kind of loses all faith in humanity because it's very much well, these people don't deserve saving. And I really like that, and I thought more scenes like that would have been impactful, kind of seeing emotional effects that various historical things might have had on the Eternals, or even seeing the scenes where they might have agonized with, oh, we're not supposed to interfere, but we kind of want to during all of these horrible wars or just any of the Marvel films where it's almost been the end of the world, you know. But it's very glossed over, and that was my other big sort of problem, was that there's a 500-year period that's just never seen. You don't see anything that happened there. And it's like, that seems like it might have been. And there's a few things that are mentioned as having happened character-wise, where certain characters' motivations change, or certain characters either fall in love or, decide not to pursue a relationship. And it's like, instead of telling us all of that, it might have been nice to see some flashbacks to things of like that nature as well. But yeah, I think the film, it does a lot for what it can in sort of 2 hours, 40 minutes, I think it was.
150 minutes.
2.5 hours then. Yeah.
2.5 hours, yeah.
But I'd still think, and maybe this is just me, that because of the scale of the Eternals living for like thousands upon thousands of years, and the sheer number of characters, I personally feel like they would have been better served with a Disney Plus series that could really get into it. Do you agree, or would you rather have seen this on the big screen as a sort of big spectacle?
Okay, two things on this. First of all, I didn't think of the Disney Plus, but now that you mention it, I think it's first a great idea, because you can just separate between times and just have one episode play at one time and then just jump forward as it goes. But what I also really like, and what I would have loved to see on big screen, is that the visuals, they don't really come across as much in the Disney Plus series. So I think both. But overall, I think the narrative is more important than the visuals. So while we would have lost the great visuals, which I think looked great, if we had lost them for a better storytelling and as a Disney Plus series, I would have taken that. But
yeah, I know what you mean, because I'm similar to you in that I love when it gets really grand and you have like the outer space scenes, or the Celestials look really, really impressive as effects, obviously. And I wouldn't have liked to lose being able to see that on the big screen, but maybe there's even a compromise where you get like all of the flashbacks as a series of character work and then the sort of present day stuff in a film. But I don't suppose they'd ever do that, because it would be like people wouldn't see the film that hadn't seen the series or whatever. But it just seems like weird to have tried to serve so many characters at once, and I don't think it super works. No,
I think that would have gotten too messy.
Yeah. The only other thing I could think of that they could potentially have done, and that's maybe this is just me, is that it seems like there's certain characters that you could have combined without like having to serve as many characters, because a lot of them serve the same function in my eyes. So like Fastos and Gilgamesh, for example, don't need to necessarily be separate characters. They could have easily been combined, or any sort of couple of Eternals could be combined into one character. And the fact that they've kind of swapped the gender of a few of them shows that it's not a matter of like, well, we want to stay true to the comics. So they wouldn't have been afraid to do that. And yeah, I think it would have avoided a lot of trying to have 10 main characters to serve, which has some other problems that come up as a result of that. But I'll mention that like as I go on. So, yeah.
One thing I also wanted to mention, that you said a little earlier that they should have tried more stuff with how the humans affected the Eternals. Yeah. And I think they kind of tried with Cersei and her being affected by that, but I just don't think it never really goes in there. It just stops quite close to it. And you could see where they were going with it, but it just never really goes completely full ground with it.
I see what you mean, but yeah, Cersei, I would argue, is probably the closest thing to like a heroic main character that the film has. It throws in Dane Whitman to kind of give her a bit of human interest, I think.
Yes.
To give you that. But then there's one scene in particular that bugged me that we didn't see a little bit more of it, which is when it's revealed that Ajax changed her mind about like their overall mission. And she says that it was because she was inspired by the heroics of the Avengers in saving the world and everything. And it's like, it would have been nice to have seen that rather than just her tell us about it. Like, I know we've all seen those movies, but we don't see the effect that has on her or how that makes her change her mind. And that's a problem, I think, a few times, is that characters say that they've decided something, but we don't see what's prompted it.
Also, I think it would have been better if she didn't change her mind because of the Avengers, because I think like you should change your mind because of humanity, not the Avengers, who are just like very special in this universe and very special humans mostly. Kind of.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, and I think that's in a way, that ties into another character, which is what I'd say about Fastos. Because, like I said, I mentioned that it's really powerful when he kind of loses faith in humanity during that scene, and then we see him later, and of course he's got his faith back because he's fallen in love and he's got a family and everything. And again, it would have been nice to have seen that, because that's a big journey from like, I'm sick of these humans, they don't deserve to live, to now I can see the value of humanity because I've got a husband and a child and everything. And it might have been nice to touch on that a little bit more, to exactly what you said, to show that humanity does have that influence on the Eternals.
And that it has the human influence on the Eternals, not just the Avengers influence. Which is
exactly, yeah. It's not all superheroes and like ultra-powered beings. It's more about saving literally humanity, you know?
Also, a movie delivering a message that the human race deserves to be saved because of Avengers is kind of a slap in the face for the real human race. Like, we care about the Avengers because they're so cool.
Yeah, I get what they're saying. They're kind of the point. I think the theme is that like we're all heroic, and it's kind of the heroic side of humanity that they're responding to. But you're right that it's very muddled in what it's trying to say about that. And it would be nice if they recognized like the beauty of the world and stuff. And there are moments of that in there, but I was expecting, I think, just a little bit more. But yeah, regardless, I just wanted to move to the next scene then after, because we talked quite a lot about that just based on that. So the scene switches to like present day London, basically. We have it revealed that the last deviant was supposedly killed in 1521. So as I said, they've been basically just kicking around for 500 years, the Eternals, waiting for a call home, which first of all is very weird to me that they've just lived for 500 years waiting around. But the other thing I have an issue with is that given the scenes that we do see, I refuse to believe that they would have stayed hidden for 500 years. Sprite can't even stay hidden for like the duration of the time we see her in the bar without almost getting caught out. And it just seems like in 500 years, there wouldn't have been somebody that would have seen through this, and Cersei changing buses into flowers or whatever else all of a sudden. It's like, I don't fully buy that these are people who would be restrained enough to hide for hundreds of years without doing something.
Yeah, I agree, but also it's one of the points where you're right, but also I don't care.
Yeah, I know. I get that you kind of have to. That's the nature of the movie, is that you have to sort of do it. But again, it might have been nice to have a more gradual reason why they're a bit more lax about things now, or explain that sort of, maybe because the world is now full of more and more weird things and superheroes and wizards, people wouldn't immediately leap to the assumption of, we've revealed who we are and we're these extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial beings or whatever. But they don't really get into that. It's just, we've almost revealed ourselves. And there's a quick reference, I think, to Dane comparing Cersei to Doctor Strange, which is kind of amusing. Yeah, no, I did like the scenes in London because, like I say, it's nice that we at least get a little bit of Cersei's kind of day-to-day and her connection with humanity. I'd have liked to see a bit more of her relationship with Icarus, because it's way more of a love triangle in the comics, and it's kind of like, it's explained here that they were married, I think it hints at in the past, and that he basically left her because...
Yes, they were married. They had a ceremony at the... Oh, was it? No, it was not at the Aztecs. Where was it? Somewhere between Babylon and Aztecs, I think, was the ceremony.
There is one of the scenes that's like one of the Spanish Civil Wars or something. It could be one of those, but I'm not 100%.
Maybe it was Aztec Empire. I thought it was earlier.
Could have been, yeah. In any case, it really explains that, like, they were madly in love and everything, and all we really get is the one scene when they first see each other, when they wake up on the ship, the Domo, and see, like, she's admiring the beauty of Earth and he's admiring her, and that's it. And then it's just like she's in a relationship with Dane, and Icarus turns back up, and you reveal why he sort of abandoned her for the mission and stuff. But we didn't get a sense, to me, of their relationship at all. It was just that one scene when they first met, which is very strange. And I'd have liked to see a bit more of a struggle with her being torn between her human and her sort of fellow Eternal, maybe. But again, the film has a lot to do, and I can understand it has to stay a bit focused, so I can forgive it. The quick note that I made here that I really wanted to mention, and this is just me, and it's probably not going to really have bothered anybody else, but it really bugged me, was that it doesn't make any explanation or any attempt to explain why all the Eternals have different accents, like from the second that they're born. Like, there's a Scottish guy, an Irish guy, there's like a Mexican accent, there's broad English accent, and it's like, why would they all sound completely different? Like, at least try to explain it or say that they've lived in cultures that have influenced them or something.
Exactly. I would have said something like that.
I don't care that they're all multicultural or they're all different skin colors or whatever, because that is what it is. And you would want to make a broad range, I guess, of people to fit in amongst humans. So I'm fine with that. Right. And maybe that's the excuse, but yeah.
Well, maybe, and that's just a huge reach, but maybe I thought that they tried, maybe they could somehow know how the cultures will be in the future and then very early try to influence this partially so that these could fit in different culture by having at least one person who is, closer to them so that they could easily build more trust.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the sort of thing that I really should be hyper-focusing on, because really the reason is just that it's easier for an acting perspective to just let the actors keep their own accent.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because then there's at least one actor that doesn't, because Angelina Jolie does her best Lara Croft Tomb Raider British accent for no reason, which is odd. But yeah, so speaking of which, anyway, talking of Thena, that was the very next scene, which is the reveal that she's got the Mad Weary, which is, by the way, the most brilliantly cheesy name for this thing ever, which I thought was just like literally the words mad and weary, but it is spelt in a really funky, cool way in the comics, and it is a real thing. So I was like, okay. I'll forgive you, because it's not just like you're insane and tired. But yeah, I really like that as a concept, and I thought it would be nice if they made a bit more about this and what Thena's struggle was, and the idea that she can be healthy but lose all her memories, and would that be something she'd ever consider? And is that really a loss of personality? Going into that a little bit more, because to me, that character Thena was just really flat and didn't do a whole lot, and I didn't really think Angelina Jolie was a good performance personally. But maybe that's just me. I mean, feel free to disagree. A lot of people would have.
Yeah, I disagree heavily.
Okay, okay, fair enough.
I actually thought Thena was my favorite character in the movie, because she was the only girl who I felt had a sense of majestic, sense of hugeness to her. Sense of she just had a presence in the movie that just really stood out for me, and I just really liked. And I also really liked the idea of the storyline she had in this movie, which wasn't fleshed out as most of the stuff wasn't in this movie.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
But from all the storylines, I think she had the most interesting, and I would probably say one of the ones that were most spent time with.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I certainly agree with you that, yeah, maybe that's why I think she seemed a bit flat to me, was that she was supposed to be this majestic, unreachable, almost regal character. And in that regard, I think, yes, Jolie does do a really good job. And I really loved even the special effects of the way she like manifests her weapons and fights and stuff. Really were impressive to me. And yes, they were probably the best fight scenes were the things that involved her. It's just, yeah, it would have been nice to see a little bit more of her, maybe. But again, maybe there's hopefully going to be sequels, so you never know. And I do think, on a sort of the opposite to what I was saying, though, one thing I do like that this storyline gives you is the chance to develop Gilgamesh as a character as well, because him kind of stepping up to be her protector, and sort of, because he is the strong sort of butch guy, revealing him to be the guy who's like stereotypically got a heart of gold and will use that strength to protect her and let her keep her memories, because he can take it if she goes crazy and attacks him or anything, I think was a really cool touch. But again, it's a shame that character is immediately killed, because the film just realizes, super strong, uber character amongst like 10 other characters, you can't really have the time and effort to serve him, so it's quicker to just kill him off, which is a shame.
And they did everything they wanted to do with him. Like, they showed him having his soft side, and then there was no use for him in the story anymore, so they just ripped him off.
Yeah, which is a shame. I mean, it's also cool that it gives Crow, the deviant guy, a chance to sort of evolve, for want of a better word, and become human and be able to talk and stuff by draining his powers. But it's not super clear why he didn't get that ability from draining Ajax in the first place. Because like, he gets her healing power, and that's fair enough, but then it's only when he takes the power from Gilgamesh that he develops into what looks more like a humanoid creature. And it just seemed very convenient, which a lot of the things I think in the film kind of do to me. But
I would believe that probably the intention behind it is that the more people he absorbs, the closer he gets. But because we only have two stages, I think. It's
exactly.
It's one jump, and we don't see the evolution. I think with the third step, we would have really seen where this was going.
Yeah, I can understand that, definitely. That's fair enough. I'm not super clear on what it means when Druig kind of decides to leave them and go his own way. Like, I get that character in the comics is kind of he's the closest to a bad guy and kind of doesn't obey their rules. But it just seemed like he was disappearing to just interfere with human history, and they were all fine with it. They just let him go. And I was just very, like, taken aback by that and just thought, that's really weird, because they don't really make any effort to stop him or anything, despite this being a supposedly unbreakable rule. And then even when he appears later, it's like he has been interfering, but only in like a specific section of the world or something. So that character, I don't think has a point really in the movie, because he's not served as kind of the bad guy that he often is in some of the comic stories. And as a pushback against everything, you've already got kind of the two opposing factions. So it just seems like he's a tad redundant, and he's there to sort of say, oh, because you have the mind control powers, maybe you can save the day with those at the end. But even that's a red herring, because it doesn't end up working. So yeah, it's a shame.
Also, I don't really like when movies just go with people who know mind manipulating. It's always those people who just go overboard and just do too much. Well, they kind of restrain it here to this very specific section of the world.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know why it's always them that just go overboard in one way or another, but it's just...
I think it's always the assumption, isn't it, that if you had any superpower, the idea that you could influence other people would probably naturally take you to nasty places, because you wouldn't put up with anything. And then in the end, it's like the power corrupts kind of idea, isn't it? You have the power to make people do what you want, but then should you have that ability? Because who are you to decide, you know? And
which makes sense if you gave a human this power. I could see that, but like we have, especially here with the Eternals, I think maybe not going down this road would have been a better fit. But yeah. I don't know much about comics, so as you said that in the comics he's more of a anti-hero type.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So it works within the comics. So maybe they just wanted to kind of bring that influence in.
Yeah,
just as an outside viewer, it just felt a little bit.
Definitely. And I will say that I will add that the actor who plays him, who I'm not even going to try and pronounce his surname, but it's Barry something. It's like a very Irish Gaelic surname. He does a really, really good job with the very little that he gets. And even the little hints at the end, even though it comes out of nowhere, that he might have a sort of relationship with Makari, and they might have a bit of a love connection going, is really interesting. But again, it's just like last minute and it comes out of nowhere. And it might have been nice to either develop that or save it for another movie, or... but yeah, it just seems like these are just added for the sake of it.
I mean, there was a hint of it, or at least I noticed a hint of it in this one flashback scene where Makari is it gambling or what was it at this table with the artifacts and stuff. I don't know exactly what was going on, but they had a look. They looked at each other, and I thought, well, they're probably a couple. They're going to be a couple.
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
but that was just a minor notice I had, so I don't know if it translated to anyone else, and I just saw something that wasn't supposed to be there.
No, that makes sense. But again, I suppose it's probably just for lack of time that they wanted to. That's probably the best they could do. But I missed it. So there you go. Yeah, again, I've mentioned it already, but I'd like to have seen a bit more thought about like not interfering with human affairs. And the really confusing part to me is, isn't Thanos technically their responsibility? Because he is like, he's part eternal or part deviant or something, at least in the comics. And they kind of hint at that here with the post-credit scene. So wouldn't they kind of have to interfere? Not to mention, if the blip apparently slowed down this emergence that was their plan of the Celestial like being born, wouldn't the Celestials want them to interfere to prevent that? It all just seems like they've written these things and then there's no huge logic behind, well, yeah, why would they let that happen and then just be relieved that the Avengers brought, 50% of all the population back because it suits your plan kind of thing? It just seems like there was a lot of them sitting around not worrying about stuff until they had to because it's their movie, which I didn't love, to be honest, but yeah.
Well, what really makes this doesn't work is especially because they have a permanent connection to the Celestials, so like they can talk to it. If they couldn't talk to it, you could just say, well, they weren't sure if they should interfere or not, and just chose not to.
Oh yeah, no, I don't blame the Eternals for not interfering if they've been given those orders. But my point is that the Celestials wouldn't want half of the
They
population.
should have given them an order. No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah.
With Thanos being half Celestial, half Deviant, or something.
Oh, Thanos. Yeah, he's definitely related in some way to them. He's definitely because like his brother's an Eternal, so I'm sure he is something to do with that anyway.
Oh yeah, I just noticed on Wikipedia it said visited by the Eternal Evos.
Yeah,
I did not know this when watching a movie. So, like from someone who doesn't know this kind of stuff, it doesn't feel that way in the movie. It doesn't feel that way like Evos is an Eternal and Thanos has something deep. You don't notice that. But I just thought it was very weird that Thanos is so big and his brother is
doesn't look anything like him. Yeah,
and I just think, wait, what?
I think if I remember, this is really, really nerdy, but I'm sure if I remember correctly, in the comics, they say that he was an Eternal that was born with the deviant gene, which is why he looks so weird and purpley and sort of over muscled and everything. But again, that's just the comics. The films never get into it, at least not yet, because again, it would probably contradict whatever they tried to say in this movie. So yeah,
yeah, I just like when a post-credit scene points to the future without opening up 3,000 questions. Going forward, to give one example of a post-credit scene I really liked was in Black Widow with Elena, where they pointed that she was going to have somehow to do with Hawkeye in the future, and they already told us what role she was going to have initially. And we can be excited about that or just don't like the idea what she's doing, but we know enough stuff that we don't have like a lot of questions in our head. No, we just
I know what you mean. Yeah, and again, it's because I think they want to go bigger and bigger with these post-credit scenes, and so it's to feed them into the story would make more sort of artistic sense, not to sound too kind of over the top, but that doesn't give you the impact that the audience goes, oh wow, it's this character I recognize, you know.
What is very weird is that they do the exactly same thing, kind of, in the second post-credit scene.
Yeah, that is weird. Like, we'll get there. Yeah,
they like do the same mistake, I would say, if we want to call it a mistake.
Yeah,
and it's even weirder there, I think, in my opinion.
I think
it's less.
That's kind of because I think I love those things because I'm such a comic book nerd, but at the same time I acknowledge that that's fully who those scenes are for. Like if you didn't know the comics or anything, those scenes mean absolutely nothing to you, and that does frustrate me on behalf of people because it's like I'd rather that people are, you know, treated like, you know, you don't have to know these things going in. You can briefly introduce characters in a nice way rather than just, oh, he has these things, you better go look it up now kind of thing. So which bugs me, but yeah, I can forgive it, I suppose.
And they did two movies now where they make good post-credit scene that give more context for viewers, give more excitement for viewers.
I would argue the Shang-Chi post-credit scene bugged me more because I don't think it knows where it's going, and that really is just we're gonna make it sound like we've got something cool in mind, but we haven't decided yet.
but at least to people who are watching this understand, like where we are heading roughly. And with this, I don't understand anything at all. Well, I'm just going post-credit scene. Well, what?
Yeah. I'll talk about it when we get to the end because I do have a couple of thoughts about it and we can discuss it. But related to sort of that second post-credit scene, that brings me back to the point that I was going to make at this point, which is just that there's no reason to me why Dane Whitman is in this film. It doesn't make any sense except that firstly they were lacking any sort of completely human characters, and because they have a love triangle thing in the comics, they wanted to include him for the character of Cersei's sake. But then again, they marketed the movie as if Kit Harington was like one of the main stars, and he gets like 2 scenes. He's in it for about 10 minutes, and I was like, I'd have preferred if they were going to do that, just don't announce it and have him as like a cameo or something that we know is going to go somewhere in the future, because the character here doesn't really do anything at all. He's completely ineffective. But again, maybe I'm wrong and you're super excited for the character or something.
I didn't I okay, let me say this. I like the character, but I don't like how he was used. I like the general idea with love triangle. I think that's a good idea, and I like the bits we've seen from him. I genuinely like that. But with it's gonna be a running theme with this review. It never goes to the point, really. It just kind of just teases us with, okay, that's a potential storyline we're not going to explore.
Yeah,
all the
that's
other
the
storylines.
thing that books. I love that character. Don't get me wrong, and I'm really super excited for the character becoming the comic book sort of hero that is hinted at. Spoiler alert! But at the same time, yeah, it doesn't
I have
really.
a lot to say about that.
Yeah,
Right.
well, fair enough. We'll get to it. But no, it just seems weird because that storyline doesn't have anything to do really with the Eternal storyline. It's a separate subplot that is in a film that already is trying to do too much. You know. I think you could have cut it personally, but maybe that's just me. Talking about the logic that lacks in things as well. When it sort of finally gets revealed that it was Icarus that killed Ajax because she was kind of faltering in her dedication to the mission, didn't it occur to him? Wouldn't he know that she has that daft communication sphere and it would look for somebody else to go to? So he would surely know he's going to be rumbled eventually. Like either that or he's just really dumb. Yeah, again, it's just convenience for the plot because somebody has to uncover what's gone on, I guess. But yeah, I
don't like any of the twists this movie tried to.
Let's let's talk about that because I was going to say the same.
Character twists. I want to specify character twists.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what you're probably going to say is the same as me, that I really don't like the twist with Icarus. The idea that he ultimately turns out to be the big bad guy, I guess, of the movie. I don't like that at all.
And then kind of not, and then kind of two, and then maybe what? Because in the end, he's just like, well, for Cersei's sake, I do that, and then he just flies into the sun. Because it fits the mythological story.
Exactly.
That's a nice picture. I feel like this was one of the things they planned in the beginning. They're like, that's a cool picture to have in the end, him flying to the sun. Let's see how we get there.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also just because they need him off the board. They need a way to defeat him. And they've established that these guys are so powerful and like, what else could you really do? So it's ultimately like, but again, that's a symptom of this guy's lived for 500 years with the knowledge of this, and he's so resolute and determined and stuck to the mission. And then in 5 minutes, he's like, oh no, I regret everything. I'm going to kill myself. So it's just sort of like, what? It's too quick if you're going to have characters that are this long-lived to have them just immediately switch their mind in that kind of time. But again, I guess the movie has to get rid of him somehow. So you may as well, allude to the Greek myth and be cheesy about it.
Second character twist. And I'm still to this day not sure if I understood that correctly because it was very confusing to me. Sprite was in love with Icarus. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, yeah, because that's a thing.
I did not buy that.
Me neither. And this has nothing to do with the Eternals comics. And I only know what they're going for in this storyline because they've talked about it in sort of behind the scenes interviews, the director and the writers. And they were basically wanting to do. Have you ever seen the movie Interview with the Vampire?
No.
Well, basically, there's a storyline in that movie where Kirsten Dunst's character is a little girl who was turned into a vampire as a young girl and so is doomed to kind of stay young forever. But she falls in love with the main character, the sort of Brad Pitt vampire, and yet he can't like have a relationship because he's obviously quite disgusted and sort of, oh, you're an 8-year-old girl in my eyes. And it's just like they've already said they're trying to do that story because you have the potential to do it since they are immortal beings and you can have this character is stuck in the body of a child and what would that do and how would you react to this? But it's first of all, it's got nothing to do with the comic book characters. And secondly, I just don't think it works. It's very muddled and unclear. And it's the cheesiest part of the film when at the very end, Cersei just says, oh, I have enough power that I can apparently turn you human. Just out of nowhere. And it's just like, what? This doesn't make sense. It's just convenience for the sake of it again. But
also, I think like a lot of the stuff isn't fully fleshed out. But with Sprite Icarus, do we get any scene at all? What like?
It's definitely all there. The Sprite.
Maybe I just missed that.
It's definitely there because then she even sort of when she stabs Cersei at the end, she has this big speech about how I've always been jealous of you because you can live as a woman and amongst people, and I still have to just always look like a child, and it's not fair, kind of thing,
No, okay, I mean a different thing. Like before she says like I'm going to join Icarus because I'm in love with him. Like, do we have any scene where Sprite expresses this love in some way, like just a look at least?
I think it's the same as Druig and Makari. It is there, but it's very much like just looks across from a distance and stuff. So,
well, I did not pick up this vibe.
That's weird because I didn't pick up the other one, but I did in this one. So yeah, again, that's the film's fault though. It goes to show it's not super clear and it's trying to do this too many times, you know. Anyway, but on a more positive note, I do like the comic book references because the Dreaming Celestial story is a thing from the comics of the Tiamat character that's kind of ends up half buried in the earth in the cool way that you get that visual at the end. It's a bit different, but it is there. And even the idea of the earth being sort of an egg, I guess, for a bigger life form is not from the Eternals comics. It's from a comic called Earth X, but it's a really popular comic. And so I was pleasantly surprised that was something they included here. Which is cool. On a similar note, I didn't love that they changed the Eternals into being basically robots rather than being like biological beings. But upon further research, I've discovered that is from the recent comics. So I can't really be mad at it for being unfaithful from the source material. I just don't like it as an idea. It also leaves a few things unclear because it wasn't until I was reading the kind of scene-by-scene breakdown to make notes that I realized that they explain, apparently in the film, that because it's the fact that the Eternals get mind wiped after every planet that kind of births a Celestial, and that's the reason that Thena has this mad weary, is because it was a mind wipe that went wrong, and she's remembering all these kind of past lives where her memories got erased. I had no sense that was what the film was trying to say, but apparently it is. Did you pick up on that, or was that just me?
I did pick up on the storyline actually, but well, I just picked up that something was wrong with the mind wipe. More than that. I also think it's kind of weird if she remembers all the past, cycles. Didn't she have known the mission?
Well, yeah, I think that's the point, is that it hints that like when she has these flashes, that's what she's getting, because she's like, no, we're all doomed, it's horrible, but she doesn't consciously remember it. It's just when she gets the flashes of past lives and things. I mean, it's misconstrued as like, oh, she's just crazy.
Oh, okay. I understand where they were going. They were going not that she remembers stuff, but just somewhere between mind wipe and completely remembering.
Exactly.
In this area. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes at least sense, even though.
Yeah, it does. But again, it's an extra layer that's really weird and confusing, like a lot of things. And the other issue that I have with this is, again, in a film that I think struggles to find a heroic character, doesn't it technically mean that all of our heroes have committed multiple genocides? Are we supposed to be okay with this? It's very weird of a place to go. Like, you've destroyed multiple planets, but because you didn't destroy this one, oh, you must be good after all, you know? It's just like, no, that's so super weird to me. But regardless, I don't want to focus fully on the negative, so I want to get into some stuff that I did like, and it all revolves around a popular character, and that's the character of Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani. I think is probably one of the better characters in here, because I think a lot of his storyline gives you the most MCU feeling type moments to me. And I love the comedy of it, the broad idea that he's imitated just being his own kind of dynasty of different descendants, all being just Bollywood film stars. And it's a fun character and a funny idea. And I think that his valet character, the Patel character, I'm starting to see that he's everyone's favorite character. And I think personally, the reason for that is that he's the most relatable human being character that the movie gives you, which I think is what it was sorely lacking, because these people are all so unknowable and whatever, that I think we could have done with more of that. And again, maybe that would have meant you include Dane more in the movie or something. I don't know. But again, kudos to these two characters, to Kingo and to Patel. So did you have any thoughts on those scenes and those characters at all?
Well, Clune is not my favorite character.
Okay.
I was going to say that beforehand, but definitely like more on the top side of characters, definitely.
Yeah.
He gave us some fun moments, and he was mostly fun, but like that's it. You know, he was just a comic relief of this story, which was fine, which was good, which was okay. And it was only on the top of the characters because a lot of the other characters were
Yeah, bland.
questionable.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's the thing, and but maybe it's just because I like the actor. I like Kumail Nanjiani as a comedian, and I think he's got that comedy presence as well, and so it gives you a lot of those funny. And I think at that point in the movie, I was just kind of feeling like I wanted it to be more like an MCU film. So it was probably a little bit of a relief at that point as well. Even though I know some people would complain about the formula and whatever else is that, but I liked it. But again, it's a shame that at the very last act of the movie, they just get rid of Kingo because they would have too many characters to serve. So it doesn't, to me, make any sense that he's like, well, I don't agree with Icarus, but I also don't want to fight him, so I'm just gonna leave. That's it. Just not take part in the fight. Speaking of which, of characters that are a little bit wasted and pointless, the deviants in this film don't really seem to have a point. They're ultimately a red herring that you want to think they're the bad guy, and then they're revealed not to be because of the whole twist of the mission was always to have Earth destroyed and birth the Celestial. So to me, it just seems unsatisfying that they're in the movie at all. And it's really illogical that at the end they wouldn't just team up, because they both end up having the same kind of the same bad guy in a way, the Celestials. They both want to challenge that. So it seemed weird that they didn't just put their differences aside and team up at the end, I guess.
I just didn't understand the deviants at all in this movie, because they especially made up the storyline that there is still deviants left, so they closed it and purposely opened it up to further explore, and then they again with a lot of things in the movie, they go somewhere with it. They try to go somewhere with it, with the storyline, with Gilgamesh getting killed and Fina talking. They at least have a direction where they wanted it to go, but every other direction this movie wanted to go, it just it gets closely to where it's supposed to be, but it just never gets there.
Exactly, and it's very sort of unsatisfying that things just happen. That's what it seems like. Things happen, and then they need to be got rid of. But I do think as well, my least favorite part of the movie, because I think it's laughably bad, is the idea that it spends an hour or more saying the deviants were all killed 500 years ago, but then reveals actually no, they weren't. They were just frozen in ice, and now because of global warming, they're suddenly free. That was awful writing to me. It was just like, first of all, these creatures whose only mission is to make sure these deviants are all dead wouldn't have noticed that they were just frozen somewhere after 500 years. And secondly, the kind of potentially heavy-handed, like, oh, you see, humans, if you hadn't done global warming, you would have been safe, is kind of, no, I don't need that in this movie either.
Also, like, to get the deviants frozen, that it takes time. They just don't froze in an instant. So, like,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So if there was someone with powers to do that, would have just frozen them and hide them somewhere, okay. But like, they froze in some way naturally, I guess. Like, or where did they get frozen? Like in a sea or something?
It's not made super clear if it was like an environmental thing, or there was kind of an ice age that we didn't know of that caused it, or because again, it's not interested. It just wants you to think, oh well, the deviants are back, so who cares?
I mean, they could have just been frozen way before the last deviant was killed. Like, could have been way older, so that's a possibility. Because we don't know if they're just leftovers of the last deviants, or if they've just been frozen sometime before that, and like, Earth is very old and we have a lot of ice ages, so there could be somewhere. But like, didn't the Eternals must have noticed that some way, I think.
That's the thing that bugs me, is like, I can accept, I guess, that there might have been reasons why there were at some point in the last millions of years or whatever that some of them may have been frozen. But what bugs me is that, like I said, these Eternals, their entire mission is to only worry about deviants. And it's just like, I can't believe they wouldn't notice that there was some just hiding frozen.
Also, one thing different to that, which I think I understood it that way. I don't know. I don't even know if it's right, but if it is, it annoys me really much. Is that apparently, I don't know, was it the Eternals or the Celestials, or like someone was responsible for killing the dinosaurs?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, actually. Yeah,
this was like 30 seconds where they just said, "Oh, we killed the dinosaurs," and like, okay.
I think it was the Celestials when they created the deviants.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's what they were saying, was the deviants. They need to be stopped because the deviants will take out all the other kind of apex predators on a world or something. And that's what had happened. And it was like, oh, we messed up, so the Eternals now have to stop the deviants from taking out the apex predators and affecting evolution in that way. And maybe the dinosaurs were a time when that effed up and went wrong in the past, you know. But again, these things are really big concepts that they'd spend, as you said, like 30 seconds on and then just wash over because you don't have time to deal with it, which is a shame.
Which just feels like something like, oh, that's a fun idea. Let's just do it for 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a fun idea. Like, oh, the Eternals killed let's kill the dinosaurs because they needed to.
And that's what prompted them to be like, oh, these deviants were a bad idea. We shouldn't have done that. Let's create something to stop them.
Yeah. But it's just like very much glossed over. And
yeah, completely. The end of the film, there's not really a lot to talk about. I love the visual of the frozen kind of dreaming celestial character. Is really cool. I didn't love the idea that it was basically like Cersei can't matter transmute and use her powers on any sentient living things until she can, but because they explain it as being part of the Unimind and the combined powers, I can sort of forgive it. It makes at least some logic to me, even though I didn't love that then she can turn sprite human because she has leftover power or whatever. So, oh well, we have to do it.
Also, one thing, like when they explained that this celestial is in the Earth, they showed a visual of that, and it's like the celestial being like 2 times bigger than Earth or something, or even more times bigger than Earth, like and just being very packed into it.
Yeah.
And when they froze it, it's like you could see the knee and the head, and it's like, how big is this? Like 3, 4, maybe 5 kilometers if you're really positive, but it's not like that big. I just thought, what?
Yeah, I mean, one of my friends had the exact same issue, and it's one of those things where the size of the Celestials, I think, is supposed to be changeable because in the comics it always varies anyway, and it's one of those things like with kind of Galactus and stuff that they're as big as you want them to be or as small as you want them to be, and even in the past when we've seen a clip Guardians of the Galaxy, he's like using the Power Stone on a planet, and he's just walking amongst people, just looking like he's about maybe 15, 20 feet tall, but certainly not like planet-sized. So I think it's just that maybe they start off smaller or they can change their size or shrink themselves or whatever. But again, it doesn't nearly get into that as much as it should because we know nothing about the Celestials other than they created these other species. And they were the things that kind of intrigued me the most that I would love to have learned a bit more about and seen more of.
Also, okay, it's possible that they just can change size. That maybe they should have explained that, but like it makes sense. But why have a visual where the Celestial? But because they showed the Celestial going out of at least a planet. I don't remember if it was Earth, but they showed the Celestial birth out of a planet, and it was really big, and it just exploded everything. Yeah. And then like the real event is like different. Like, okay. That didn't make sense to me.
I think it's a function of the fact that, like I said, in the comics, the birth of a Celestial doesn't destroy a planet in such that way. But because they wanted that to be the stakes of this movie, they kind of had to have it be, no, if it comes out, it will destroy a planet. But you're right, that visual doesn't make sense because it wouldn't be a matter of it just stretches and then the planet obliterates because it's so big. It would be more like it opens an earthquake fissure or whatever that then causes a chain reaction. Because it's not, you're right, it's not that big. It just looks like an island kind of thing, I guess, because that's half frozen, the little helmet and the knee thing. But yeah, it's super unclear, and a lot of the broader concepts I think are, which is a shame because they look good. The visuals are amazing.
And I think the size of the size of the Celestial in the end, it's big enough that I would buy that it could destroy the planet if you just rip it open, like it's big hole. I would buy that it could destroy a planet even at this size, because if you just feel like 3-4 kilometer big thing just get out of the core of Earth,
yeah, of course, yeah,
makes sense that not completely destroyed, but not humans living on it anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just feel very weird that they chose to do this visual where it's like Earth exploding.
Yeah,
basically.
I think it was just literally because they wanted the audience to think like, oh, this is terrible. It would be the big end of the world, and yeah, it's a shame though because it's very unclear. But yeah, speaking of the Celestials, that's the thing I want to. The thing to me that frustrated me the most is that was when the film really started to interest me and got most exciting. Is when Arashem, who in the comics is known as the Judge, appears at the very end and actually becomes the character he's supposed to be, and says that he wants to scan the Eternals' memories to see if humanity's worth surviving or not. That to me was the first time I was really thoroughly invested in the movie, and it's the last scene. Basically, it doesn't do anything with it. It's obviously saved for a sequel or whatever. And I found that quite frustrating after like 2.5 hours of waiting for something interesting to happen. But again, I don't know if that's something you would relate to. Did you like that scene, or were you just exhausted?
What I mostly like about the MCU, even if it does get sequels, like movie sequels, it's always a really complete movie, and I think that just kind of broke it open into like a 2-part thing. Like, okay, this is part 1, and the same story. It's the same storyline basically, continuing further. Where it's like if you look at for example, the first 3 Iron Man, for example, they're like different movies, like they're continuations of the same movie, obviously, but it's like every movie is closed up in some way. It's not like you would never refer to Iron Man 1 as part 1 and Iron Man 2 as part 2 and Iron Man 3 as part 3, like a way other stuff gets referred.
I know what you mean. This it seems a lot more like Infinity War and Endgame than it does like its own movie, because you don't end your movie with, okay, I'm going to judge if humanity's worth saving or not, and then you'll just have to wait and see. It seems like a weird place to end it. Yeah. But again, I guess they're hedging their bets for the future, and that's what they would do at this point. So fair enough.
What's really weird, because I think I've read an interview before the movie was coming out that this film was supposed to be very closed up, and like they weren't sure. Like I think the director said it in an interview that they weren't sure if they were going to make a second movie and if it's going to be successful and stuff. And we don't know. We should wait. And it doesn't feel like you're going to wait anywhere.
Yeah, no, I understand like, I think the point is that even if they don't get a direct second sequel, all of the things will be addressed in other future Marvel movies. And I noticed the film does end with the words, "The Eternals will return." So whether it's in a sequel or in another movie or, a series or whatever, these plots will be wrapped up because they can't be left hanging. But again, I don't know if the performance of the movie and the critical response means that it won't get like an Eternals 2, or if they do, if it'll just be a massive change of tone, like kind of Thor Ragnarok style, or who knows. But yeah, I'd be interested to see it anyway.
Yeah, but I also think if they don't just give this storyline full time, if they're just going to address it part by part in different other stuff, movie series. No, I'd like to have this thing addressed in its own similar. If it's a movie or TV series, I don't even care.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it needs its own movie, and I would prefer personally to see it be a movie, because it's the plot that I'm more interested in than this first film.
Yes.
And it feels like now the setup and everything's out the way, so you could get into it and you wouldn't have to explain who all the different players were, the Celestials and the Eternals and stuff. So I do hope that there isn't like the equivalent of an Eternals 2 or Eternals, the Celestial Saga, or whatever they want to call it, that deals with these grand sci-fi-ish concepts,
Yes.
Fingers crossed anyway. But yeah, just to end things, and I wanted to talk, because I know you wanted to as well, about the post-credit scenes. So again, I probably should have said this throughout, but spoilers, obviously, if you haven't seen the movie or you haven't seen it, didn't stick around for the post-credit scenes. But the first one is that we see the other Eternals who haven't been taken by Arashem the Judge are still on their spaceship, and they are visited by Pip the Troll, as played by Patton Oswalt, and Eros, or Star Fox, as played, unfortunately, by Harry Styles.
I really want to know why they did this casting, because
I know.
I just want to know, because I can see them just doing the casting because they felt like it was a fit. Why not? But I also have in the back of my mind, it very much could be just because they wanted this name.
Yeah,
and I just like to know that.
It strikes me very as pandering, like, oh, we're doing really well, but we could do with more of a teenage girl, young woman type audience. So let's do a bit of casting that might get them interested, kind of thing.
Which I get. I get that, but I think they could have just used this in maybe somewhere different, because I don't feel like the Eternals and just what the Eternals stand for, and this whole, well, not universe, but this whole area of the Eternals, probably not something that's like typical teenage girl. I would say. I think they could have just gone into a different franchise with different series with that, which more plays with this audience.
Yeah,
This
I mean,
audience.
maybe we're being cynical, and maybe I haven't seen Dunkirk. Maybe he did a fantastic performance, and he turns out that he's a great actor. But
I think a lot of people liked him in that, if I remember, but I haven't seen it myself.
That's fair enough. I will admit, though, that Star Fox is a character that I know almost nothing about from the comics. It's getting into the cosmic stuff that's very much my blind spot.
Fox.
Yeah, his official name is Eros, but then he joined the Avengers and was given the code name Star Fox because it was thought that Eros was inappropriate. So yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Think of Star Fox just on the Nintendo games.
Yeah, the video game. Do a battle roll. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they came after the character was debuted in comics, but yeah, I wouldn't mind the casting and everything so much if it wasn't for the fact that they've even said since that they've got big plans for that character in the future, and it's like, I don't want to see that actor, and I really don't want to see. The more I research that character, and it turns out that like his power is basically that he can, if he goes near a woman, then they become instantly like super pleasure attracted to him or something. So he's effectively just a big sex pest. He's been put on trial for like sex crimes and things in the comics, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with these storylines in the future. This just seems really uncomfortable to me, But yeah, I guess we have to hope they do something good. But I will say I do know the character of Pip the Troll, and he is kind of fun and funny, and I like that casting of Patton Oswalt as the character as well. So I can stand to see more of him, I guess. But yeah, did you have any other thoughts on that scene or no?
No, just that was just it. I have more thoughts on the second.
Okay, scene. Yeah, again, slight spoilers because there's something that was revealed since after the event of this post-credit scene that you wouldn't have known from just watching it, but that really excited me. But basically, just getting into it, the scene is Dane Whitman opens a box of something with his family crest on. There's been hints throughout the film that his family history is not what he'd said to Cersei in the past, and we see basically the Ebony Blade from the comics, which this character is a comic book character. Dane Whitman is the Black Knight, and the Ebony Blade is kind of this mystical sword. So we see the effect it has as it becomes kind of liquidized and tries to overtake him, I guess, which leads to lots of other possible plot lines down the road. And then we just hear a voice off screen and don't see who it is, asking him, Mr. Whitman, are you sure you're ready for that yet? Which, spoiler alert, turns out that that's the character of Blade. And that's his first appearance or non-appearance in the MCU, which is really cool. And I love that. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And I love that character's in England. I love that he might be forming a kind of mystical version of the Avengers or like a supernatural version. That's all cool. But yeah, so what did you want to say about that scene then, Toby?
Yeah, first of all, Dan has a blade that is, well, I just wrote down somehow legendary because that was all I got of this. And that's it. It's like nowhere it's hinted. We don't have any connection at all to anything. It's like, we don't have any use for this character anymore. Or we couldn't find a more creative use for this character. Let's just connect him some way as... with this blade, as I already forgot what the character's name was. The character in the comics is the Black Knight, and the weapon's called the Ebony Blade, which they do hint at earlier in the film because I forgot. There's a scene that's confused almost everybody that's seen the film when Thena is kind of playing with a sword on the ship, and they ask her if it's the Ebony Blade, and she says that it's Excalibur, which a lot of people have read as meaning that the Ebony Blade and Excalibur are the same thing, which is not what she's saying. She's saying that she has Excalibur, not the Ebony Blade, because obviously that's still on Earth. So that felt just really random, and I just thought they should have just went with Dane, like in a sequel or something, giving him like some connection to Cersei maybe again, and just let that just be, and don't just go further with it because it's just really random for me. It's like, we have this actor that we want to do something with. How about that?
It's really weird because it's kind of they've done it backwards, the opposite way that the comics have done, which is the comics have the character established and his connection to all these kind of magic cursed objects and his Black Knight persona and everything. Then he gets in a relationship with Cersei. So it's kind of an established character. It doesn't like have a relationship with a human being that then you see kind of develop these powers and stuff. So it seems like they did it the wrong way around, I guess. But again, I was the most excited because I really love that character because it's kind of like it's similar to like English folklore type stuff. And there's there's a really cool concept of like whenever the sword actually takes blood, it curses the person wielding it a bit more and stuff. And these are all great ideas that I think are going to be fantastic for any future film down the line, especially if they feed into like Blade and vampires and stuff. But
so that's why he asked him if he really wants to do that.
exactly,
Or if
yeah,
he's ready.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that also just feel like, oh, Blade and a Blade and it's cursed. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. It would have been nice if they'd spent time to get into that instead of just have that as a hint, because it's a really cool storyline. So yeah, explain it a bit, you know.
Also, it felt really weird in the movie when it's like just someone talking and it's like, and this is no joke. When I watched the scene, what I thought had happened was that the Blade, like the ebony blade, was talking to him.
Oh right, yeah,
that's what I got of it. Because it's like, are you ready for this? Like, okay, that makes sense. The Blade could just give him that thought or something like that. Not thought, but like said that to him in a way, in a mind
I see that
way. That's what I got of it. And then I open Wikipedia and it's like, oh well, it's Blade. It's Blade the character, which is also really confusing to talk about if we talk about the Blade, the object, and Blade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was really weird when I wrote this in my notes. Like,
yeah, I was still super excited to learn that it was Blade, but I wished it had the character appear, because that removes all that confusion, and it wouldn't have been that difficult presumably to get. They have the actor do a voiceover, and it is the same actor. It's Mahershala Ali who's going to be playing Blade, who does the voiceover. So like, how hard would it have been to just film him and have like one scene and just show him? You know what I mean? It's not even like you need a costume or anything, because Blade, the character, doesn't have one. It's just like a leather jacket basically. So it's not hard to have him completely in character either.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Also, I think if they had him appear, I would have probably noticed that, even though I don't read comics. Like, for people who are at least that invested in the MCU, that they keep up to date with announcement and stuff like that. And I think that's the best audience this post-credit scene should have. People who are really invested in everything of the MCU, but not into the comics. I think that's the best audience you could get for a post-credit scene. And I would have noticed that. I would have seen character and would like, because I just would have noticed the character and would have been, okay, that's cool, okay.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work that, it could be anybody. No, the internet knows in one day who it is.
Yeah, exactly.
People notice. Like, someone in the audience will notice this voice, be like, oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it.
And then just spreads to Wikipedia, apparently.
Well, no, it was Chloe Zhao had did an interview and confirmed that it was the actor that did it, and it was supposed to be the character of Blade. And it's like, well, if the director wants you to know that, have her include it in the film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so just to finish up then, what I will get into the audience stuff afterwards, but just to finish our kind of part of this, I always kind of end with like a conclusion and then a score out of 5 stars. So I always let my guests go first as well. So did you want to go first and give your conclusion and what you would rate this movie out of 5?
Okay. I think what this movie was a lot of the things the movie was trying to, I think every route this movie was trying to go was and would have been an interesting route to go to. I don't think I have any route that I'm like, oh, that would have been bad anyway, good that they just didn't explore. I think every route is interesting in its own way to explore, but they open up so many things that every route was not explored in any good way and was just left hanging and felt unsatisfying because of that. So I would have really wished that they just would have committed to one route that we were going to go to and would have the other stuff play out sometime later, because most of the storylines that were established here could have also been played out in a later some way. Not the same way, but like some way.
Yeah.
For example, Fina's mind thing, they could have done that later somehow, that she was losing control, and they could have done the love triangle also in a sequel if they wanted to cut that back. They could have.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the things they could have done just in a later movie, series, whatever. But they crammed it all in here. Potentially, I think maybe because they wanted to open up this whole Judgment storyline, which is also big.
Yeah.
So they just tried to end everything they opened up somehow here, and it just didn't work. It was very messy most of the time. I like the visuals. I want to say that positively. I really like the visuals. I also, I really like the historic scenes. They look great. They were, I just like them and hope that we would have seen more of that. I think that's the storyline I would have gone to if I would have made a movie. I would have gone more into the storyline of developing these huge history of Earth, and then the Eternals slowly coming to appreciate Earth more and more.
Yeah.
I think that's the route I would have gone to. I would have scrapped the love triangle, scrapped the mind vibe thing.
Yeah, there's too many subplots, basically, isn't there? It's very stuffed. Yeah.
I think that's the route I would have gone to.
Yeah, focus it more completely.
Yeah. But every other route would have been also a good movie, I think.
Yeah.
Just like focus on one. So
Okay.
Score overall. I normally don't score stuff, so I don't really have an idea of what to score out of 5. You said.
Yeah.
Maybe a 2.
Okay. Fair enough.
One seems very harsh because it was not a shit movie. It was like
no, it isn't.
They tried a lot of things, and everything they tried was good but not executed. Everything was interesting, and I want to give them that they really tried to do something big. Also, I want to give the MCU some props to just go somewhere different, which I really like that the MCU is doing this now. So many different things, and it's really great. And I want to just praise them for that again. And 2 out of 5 I've seen.
Yeah, we're on very similar pages, but so I'll just give you my thoughts and compare. My quick conclusion is from my Letterboxd page, and it's just I have no pleasure in saying this, and I don't say it often, but I'm afraid the critics got it right this time. Let me say first that it's not the worst movie ever. It's far from being even the worst comic book movie, and it's not even the worst thing in the MCU, but it's the worst possible MCU movie, probably. It's definitely a strong contender. For such a praised director, especially when it comes to visuals, I found a lot of the scenes surprisingly dull and flat. The pacing was laborious, and the characters were either annoying or impossible to connect with. There's some good acting and some intriguing future setup, because it's the MCU after all, but it all gets the bare minimum of screen time. Even a character and actor who were announced, the Kit Harington character with the film, makes me wonder why they were in it and wish that they weren't previously announced. Plus, the film, without getting into spoilers, features the single worst bit of casting in the MCU, which was a less than pleasant surprise. We discussed that in the post-credit scene. Some of the action was really cool. A few of the more Jack Kirby-style things pop, and it's probably more average than bad. However, the fact that I basically keep looking for lower bars that the film cleared really says it all. And I basically gave it 2.5 stars out of 5, because I think exactly down the middle is as fair as I can be. Because like you, it's not terrible. It's very watchable, and it still has a lot of MCU moments, but I can't give it a passing grade, so I would have to stick exactly in the middle. So that would make the average overall score for the podcast then would be 2.25 out of 5 for Eternals. So
can I just say one more thing?
Because
I actually do keep a ranking of all MCU projects.
Okay.
Except I haven't included What If into this ranking because it just doesn't fit to me to rank this anywhere. Because it doesn't feel to me like a MCU project. Like, don't open this up. It just isn't included. So we have 29 projects.
Okay.
I have it on place 20 of 29.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think I was debating between it, and then after sitting with it for a little while, I think it's currently above Thor: The Dark World, Iron Man 3, and controversially Spider-Man: Homecoming, which I just didn't care for. But it's like 4th from bottom, I think, in my personal rankings. So
I just give you a quick rundown of what is below it.
Okay.
Quickly. Hulk, the first 2 Thors, Ant-Man 1, Iron Man 3, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Captain Marvel, Captain America: Civil War, and Falcon: Winter Soldier are all below Eternals. The rest is above.
Wow, you and I have different tastes, but that's good. It's good that we are.
I can just quickly give you my top 5, okay?
Okay, go for it.
Number 5 is actually not the first Avenger, but Avengers 1, like the original Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Place number 4 goes to Thor: Ragnarok.
Okay.
Place number 3 is Infinity War.
Okay.
Place number 2 goes to Winter Soldier, also Captain America: Winter Soldier. And place number 1 is, and that's probably the most controversial one, but the first Doctor Strange.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like Doctor Strange a lot more than most people, but I think it's just squeaking into my top 10. I'll leave a link to my letterboxd in the comments or the description, because all my lists and things I like doing are on there, and it's really cool. But yeah, so just to finish things off then for this particular episode, without going too long, I wanted to get us into the audience responses. So as I said, I did send out the usual tweet and just said, what were your thoughts if you've seen it on Eternals? And I wanted to share just the few responses that I got. The first one is from @BleakBewer, who says, it was different from the previous MCU movies, and I'm okay with that. It didn't address all the questions it brought up, like where did Icarus disappear to for 500 years? But I was okay with it. So all in all, a good start to Phase 4. Okay. @Pappy_1701 says, I just came from it. It was okay. Best take on it that I've read. This is what happens when you try to develop all your characters in one movies. I kind of get it. Going cosmic, you want a big screen, but I think this deserved a 6-episode miniseries, but you probably wouldn't have gotten the big name actors that they got. I don't know about that. We tend to get a lot of big actors on TV these days, but fair enough. @Tom_Sly, who is a regular contributor, says, visually stunning, well-directed, really good, although wasted in some areas. Cast, just enjoyable, not brilliant, but not as awful as Thor: The Dark World. Okay. And finally, @Simmerad, again, regular contributor to this and my Star Trek podcast, says, I went in, almost didn't, with low expectations, but I ended up really enjoying it to the extent that I'm genuinely mystified at the negative reviews. I really hope that the events of this film are properly followed up in future ones, as people should really be shaken by the finale. So, yeah. So that was the sort of audience's responses to the movie. But as I mentioned up top, I did also ask the audience for, with us being almost at the end of this first year of Phase 4, how would you rank the 7 Phase 4 projects so far? And I just wanted to go through not a lot of responses, but just the few that I had. And I'll start with my listing, which is that I have basically What If at number 7, Eternals at number 6, Loki at 5, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings at 4, Black Widow at 3, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier at 2, and WandaVision at number 1. So just to give you the other people's, @Mangler112 has not seen Eternals, but they have Black Widow at number 6, What If at number 5, Falcon and Winter Soldier at 4, Shang-Chi at 3, Loki at 2, and also WandaVision at number 1. And @Tom Sly has Falcon and the Winter Soldier at 7, Eternals at 6, Black Widow at 5, What If at 4, Loki at 3, Shang-Chi at 2, and again WandaVision top at number 1. @Simmerad has What If at number 7, Black Widow at 6, Falcon and the Winter Soldier at 5, Eternals at 4, WandaVision at 3, Shang-Chi at 2, and Loki at 1. But adds, honestly, if you ask me in 5 minutes, it might be a different order. The important thing is I really liked the top 4, mostly enjoyed 5 and 6, and enjoyed odd bits of 7. But the other response I got was from you, Toby. So did you want to give us your top 7 yourself?
Yeah, because I just noticed that my top 7 is different from my official list, because I just written it quickly down, because I don't have my Excel sheet everywhere.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So I want to go my official list.
Okay, go for it.
But I need to start from 1, because otherwise I just overlook that. Number 1 is WandaVision. Number 2 goes to Loki. 3, Shang-Chi. Then, where's next? 4, Eternals. 5, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Oh no, 1, WandaVision. 2, Loki. 3, Shang-Chi. 4, Black Widow. I missed that. 5, Eternals. 6, Falcon, Winter Soldier. And then, not my official list, but I still stand by it. Number 7, What If.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I don't think What If struck quite as hard as it should have, but it seems like Eternals is.
I still have to watch that last episode.
Really? Oh wow!
I yesterday I watched the episode 7 and 8 because I just had time. I didn't really keep up with What If because it just didn't interest me at all.
I was expecting a little more, but yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. So I'm looking forward to Hawkeye, which starts very soon.
Yes.
And obviously to Spider-Man: No Way Home, which hopefully will be as big as everyone thinks it's going to be.
Not as messy as this movie.
Yeah, hopefully not, because if it tries to do too much, that's a worry. But yeah, so thanks so much to you, Toby, for coming to join me and discussing all things Eternals in the MCU. I've had a really good time. So did you want to plug your social medias or anything?
Yeah, first of all, lovely to be here. My social media is on Twitter, dark_sonic2002. Yeah, I actually have a YouTube channel which I don't only upload reviews in German, so probably no one could watch this.
I can still link to it, yeah.
But it's called it's in German Zusammenschauen. It's called, which translates to watching together, because I watch together with a friend of mine stuff, and we review it like we just did now.
Cool. That's fair enough. Again, I've had a really good time, and come back next week when I'm not 100% sure, but I think I'm either going to have an MCU corner-to-corner review talking about Shazam or possibly Spider-Man 2. But stay tuned and I will reveal that one way or the other. And I have got all the rest of the schedule planned. It's up there on the Twitter page, which you can find at podcast_screen, or you can find my personal page at Iron Mike Wilson. And if you're interested in all things Star Trek, at HOMTrek or at HomTrek on Twitter has the link to the Star Trek Hit or Miss YouTube channel that I've just finished series 1 of that podcast, and that's got 11 episodes you can check out anytime. So yeah, and in the meantime, if anybody wants to talk movies, feel free. And yeah, thanks again, Toby. Have a great day, everyone. And in the epic words of Arnie, I'll be back.